Good morning and a very warm welcome to the grand finale of the MICE Research and Business Development Fellowship Program, an initiative proudly hosted by Niche Partners. My name is Marlene Govender and I am responsible for projects here at Niche Partners. Today I am joined by our team leader, Londi Khumalo, our sales consultant, Aman Martinez, and our research assistant, Victor Shabango. We are very delighted to have you all join us for this important finale this morning. For 3 months, we've engaged with a vibrant cohort of emerging MICE professionals from across Africa. Today, we celebrate their journey and explore the strategic role of the MICE sector in Africa's economic future. But before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, as we normally do, we have a few house rules. Please make sure that your microphone and camera are off. There will be chances to interact with the questions later in the session. However, feel free to insert them into the chat. In the unlikely instance that the session ends abruptly or we experience interruptions, please rejoin the session and give us a few minutes to resolve any issues. Without further ado, let's begin with our first panel discussion that includes our thought leaders and guest speakers, focused on the value of the MICE industry and how we align to the National Development Goals. I will hand you over to Londi Khumalo.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to our attendees. Good morning to our guests. And thank you for joining this session, which really is the culmination of a 3-month journey in which we've worked with our thought leaders to try and equip African professionals in the industry with research and some business development tools. Obviously, 3 months is not enough, but we are excited just to hear a bit of a reflection on what the journey has been. We're also excited to hear from some of the thought leaders that, though they haven't been part of the program, are thought leaders in this industry because of the work in Africa. So I'd like to invite our thought leaders, Marlene Govender, David Zimmerman, Tracy Gowden, and Rick Taylor, to unmute. You can share your screen and your face, and we can kick off this conversation about why this MICE industry matters. And I know I'm going to start with David Zimmerman just because everybody's kind of working on a very tight schedule, so in and out of this meeting. But David, if I just start with you, welcome. You joined us as a technology leader on the program, discussing the importance of managing communities through technology. Please briefly just share with us your reasons for joining the program, what you believe is the value of this MICE industry, and why you thought it was valuable just for Africa in terms of technology to be growing within the MICE sector. You're on mute, David. There we go.
Hey, Londi. Hello to everyone that's joining here today. My apologies, my connection is bad. I'm traveling at the moment, and hotel Wi-Fi is not as great as it should be. Londi, it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of the program. I think that to look at MICE as an industry, one cannot take away the element of technology as we grow, and especially as we grow MICE as an industry in Africa. Africa is oftentimes left behind in terms of technology, but I believe that just looking at what we've seen with the program and the kind of technology that has been used, we're really succeeding in this space. And I think personally, for me, the reason why I wanted to join really to try and give back to an industry pretty good to try and share some of the knowledge that I have. And that's really how we're going to grow MICE in Africa, is by sharing our knowledge and sharing our ideas and becoming a larger global community in Africa. So thank you so much for the invitation to join. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, David. So you were catching there, and I know this is probably the most irking thing because you're the technology. You're the technology thought leader, but I definitely caught that in terms of the importance of Africa growing in our communities and investing into that. So thanks for that, David. Rick, I'm going to jump over to you. You are constantly engaged in conversations with governments on the continent, trying to get them to actually invest into this MICE industry of ours. Share with us a little bit about some of that, and also the importance of this industry that you're trying to communicate to these African governments. I know I say trying because we've got 55 countries. You've done quite a lot over the years, and still going. What are they understanding, and what are some of the challenges within that as well?
Terrific, Londi, and good morning to you and the rest of the room, as it were. Yeah, you and I, our sort of track record, our friendship, our professional friendship goes back many, many years, and I've been, I don't know, beating the MICE drum for, gosh, close on 25 years. Can you believe it? And obviously started in Cape Town all those years ago, into South African tourism, and now I think strategically importantly onto the continent at large. You mentioned 54, 55 countries. Londi, one of my challenges, or can I make the net wider, one of our challenges is that if you look at those 54, 55 countries, I'm going to say they all have a tourism board. They all have a leisure strategy that's well funded, arguably, with teams, great teams, and what have you. If you look across the aisle, I think maybe one handful, two handfuls, 10 have got convention bureaus. And I have always maintained with enormous passion that the convention bureau is the differentiator. How do you get people coming to a country that were not coming? So the reply to that is obviously through a meeting, through an association meeting, through an event of sorts. And you'll get, again, not to decry the leisure component, one or two people, a couple little families, VFRs, but when it's a conference, you've got thousands of people coming into your destination. And to Tony's earlier point and his reference, then obviously the GDP compilation, the growth, the job creation, and what have you. You also mentioned, Londi, what are the challenges? The business events, the MICE sector is a lot more strategic. Again, I always qualify by saying with enormous respect vis-a-vis leisure. It's a lot of hard work. It needs a lot of attention to detail. It needs follow-up. It needs networking. It needs concretization. And those are, I think, quite difficult things to do unless a convention bureau or the country has a strong destination MICE strategy. And it's important that that strategy that lands, obviously in many cases, it lands at a ministerial level, and it needs to be steered. We always say that the sector should be public sector led, but private sector led. So that's, I think, very, very important in itself. You also touched upon some of the challenges, Londi. One of the things is, in a particularly political-led environment, politics come and politics go, ministers come, ministers go. So at the highest levels, that degree of continuity is often quite a challenge. I'm just thinking now, one of our clients is Mozambique. We immersed with that amazing country. That is happening. Our contract sort of started about a year ago. Then we had some political divergences, but that is now all settling down, and it's a restart. So what we're really saying is that the territory comes with challenges, certainly not insurmountable in any shape or form, but we know the result delivers massive benefits. And the example there is Rwanda. We started that campaign in 2013, and today Kigali, the capital of Rwanda as a country, is roaring along with enormous success. We were at IMEX in Frankfurt last week, and the latest ICA results have just been published, and Kigali is up there, top 3 in terms of cities, and Rwanda doing really, really well. So it does work. A hardworking, business event strategy categorically delivers. And I always say it's as an institution, it's the best investment any government can make.
Great. No, thanks, Rick. And so you're touching on something that I definitely want to double click on just in a minute, in terms of the importance of the government and the political elements, because they though we need to motivate them, they sometimes are the place where we get stuck as an industry. And I'm definitely going to come back to you on that one. Marlene Govender, also in this industry for over 20 years. I never get the exact number, but she said earlier she's lived, basically you grew up here also. So Marlene, you've also been in this industry for several years, both private sector and public sector. And your, at least in our relationship, where I've seen you be exceptionally strong is in terms of strategy and business development, and actually winning those corporate meetings, those international meetings. You joined us on this journey as a thought leader. Share with us what you thought was the value of business development and the capacity building on the continent specifically. What was your motivation, and what actually do you think is the reason that this MICE industry matters?
Thank you, Lance. I think we've had discussions about this from, back in the day. I'm very passionate about the industry. And I reached a specific point in my career when I started to just see all the dots connecting. And I started to look at how can we then look at our absolute advantage for each African country based on the comparative advantage, and then target conferences specifically that could leave legacies in each of those countries. So if we go back to Agenda 2063 and the United Nations 2030 agendas, there's a lot of common goals. And the goals that come out that's very dominant is the poverty, it's the job creation, it's the infrastructure. So how do we look at then strategically targeting and developing business based on bringing these international conferences into specific African countries where they can bring knowledge, transfer knowledge, leave a legacy in terms of infrastructure development, foreign direct investment. So there is an amazing opportunity using the MICE industry to be very strategic and accelerate the development of Africa and our African countries. But I think it comes back down to business development. We have to be very specific. In terms of the conferences that you target, it just cannot be every African country bidding for the same conference. We have to sit down and say, right, this conference would be best if it takes place in this specific place. And I think bringing the international conferences into Africa makes sense because a lot of our experts and our associations and academics cannot afford, and our students cannot afford to travel to the international conferences outside of the country. But when they do come into our country, into the continent as a whole, our universities can get to showcase in the form of an exhibition showcase. There's such brilliant innovations happening on the African continent, but we just don't have a platform to showcase this. And I think the focus at the moment is trying to win bids for various countries within Africa. But once the bid is won, we lose that opportunity of how can we market, how can we showcase, how can we leverage that conference for everything that we can specifically so that we can make a difference in that specific sector, in that specific country, in the continent. So yeah, that's just my thinking. And I strongly believe the MICE industry can definitely make a huge economic impact and do a turnaround for Africa as a whole.
Great. Thanks, Miles. And you're touching on, these are the three sort of drivers. So you've got the knowledge sharing that you've highlighted, and the importance of, if we bring these conferences here, we're able to close the knowledge gap that exists in some of these industries. We're able to actually connect our youth and our populations to sort of intellectual capital around the world by bringing people from different parts of the country and continent and world together. And then given the agendas, the one third pillar is the trade. So the conferences play an important role in being a facilitating agent for that as well. And I'll come back to you just now as well on that. So Rick, just coming back to the issue of governments, because we do have a couple on the call. We saw a lot of them signed up. We've got different ministries and boards. So in terms of the industry, you did mention that sometimes this is the area that is a bit of a challenge in developing strategy, because if we don't have the right strategies at that leadership level, that it then becomes difficult to actually roll out on the ground. Marlene is touching on when we're bidding for the actual conference and we're attracting it, and then making sure that we actually have that value throughout our economies, but without a sort of national incentive or driver, it becomes difficult to actually see that come into the country, to actually measure it, to actually see it actually impact different sectors. From your perspective, what are the things? So if you were to say this is the one thing that governments need to understand as to the value of the mines industry, and what, in terms of investments, if we're going to probe anyone, what would be that one thing that you're saying we need to do?
Thanks, Londi. I think it's fundamentally paramount that the whole, I think I'm going to say tourism per se, but specifically business events, it must be government sector led. So in other words, your Ministry of Tourism. If I can tell a little story where in Uganda we were busy there for 4 years establishing their National Convention Bureau. The success came from getting all the ministries involved behind the mission of attracting, obviously, foreign direct investment, skills, knowledge, and all those great things that Marlene has just referenced. Once the government appreciates that each dollar that they invest, there is an ROI, a powerful ROI component. And once that comprehension lands, then, honestly, the Convention Bureau in itself accelerates. And it talks to, absolutely, Marlene, Agenda 2063 and all those great things. The 17 SDG goals, number 1 being poverty alleviation as a result of job creation and an investor strategy. But the trick, if I can use that word, is to get that comprehension, the merits of the Convention Bureau to resonate with each of those various ministries. An example is the Ministry of Finance, who generally puts, obviously, the dollars via their budgets on the table. If the Convention Bureau can respond and illustrates the up and downstream benefits of that particular investment. So it's a very strategic and very economic pillar that goes forward. Government sector led, got to work with the private sector driven. And those two pistons will get that business events sector going. And again, let me underline, because it is, from a government point of view, one of the best, if not the best, investments any government can make is in investing in a future-fit, market-ready Convention Bureau.
Love that, future-fit, market-ready Convention Bureau. Because exactly, we've got all of these goals, and unless we have actual strategies, but then behind that, the tool of, we have a Convention Bureau, we have a vision, and then we drive towards specific goals, job creation, trade, knowledge transfer. Unless that is intentional, we're not really going to see a lot of movement in terms of this mice industry, because we'll be scattered and not necessarily moving in a coherent way. Thanks, Rick, for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Marlene, just maybe coming to what Rick's just said, you've been an advocate, and as long as I've known you, for knowledge sharing and skills development. That's been your passion. You do it personally, you do it publicly. Where do you think that fits into this whole, because we're talking about we need to get our governments to move in terms of the capacity building. What is your motivation in terms of that particular pillar of capacity building on the continent?
I think if we look at specifically the MICE industry, and I saw this, the pipeline of skills for hospitality when I was back at the Durban ICC. Whenever there was vacancies, we would struggle to get staff because the pipeline was already diminishing. And also, if you look at on the academic space, tourism is specifically focused on leisure. There's not a prospectus that covers the business tourism side of it and the MICE industry as a catalyst for economic development. And I know on my dissertation, I put that in as a recommendation that the academic space needs to create a platform for business tourism because it's so much bigger, and the return from business tourism compared to leisure is, it's tenfold. Yeah. So from a capacity building perspective, I think by bringing these conferences into the country, whether it's African regional or it's national, I think that platform as a standard for academic institutions to have, if it's the medical sector, for example, have students from that sector get given a grant or but some way get to attend the conference. Get an opportunity for the academic space to showcase the innovations that the students are coming up with. That's the only way we're going to build capacity. At the moment, our industry is very fragmented, and we've got to start seeing the whole as greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah. Every single, as Rick even mentioned, the sectors, if you focus on job creation, then poverty alleviation drops. Everything is interrelated. So we can definitely use this opportunity. It's difficult for us to capacity build for hospitality, for the MICE industry, for Africa as a continent. But I think you creating this platform is a great trajectory to start this moving as a stimulus for us to start spreading the knowledge throughout Africa in terms of how can we use the MICE industry to leverage off the opportunity to bring about change.
No, thank you. And thank you both. I mean, everything that you're saying is something that we resonate with, because it's a system. So the MICE industry is an industry. It's a holistic, the system has to work. And the failure of, whether it's from the side of just strategy right at the start, having the right leadership to actually come up with the strategy, all the way to the pipeline of capacity, right? So that's exactly what you're saying, Mark, because if we grow the industry and then we lack the skill set on the ground of people that can actually make and sustain the growth, we have a problem. And so organizing ourselves as an industry is an important part. So we have to move on to the next session. So I'm going to just ask you to both think about just one key takeaway. And I know David, he's put on the chat, he's still struggling. David, if you can hear us, you could also think about the one sort of key takeaway that you would say in terms of the MICE industry and our way going forward. If we're thinking futuristically and with the different stakeholders on the call, what would be the one thing that you would say, this is the investment point going towards 2030 that we believe that Africa needs to look at? And I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. And as you do that, just also to maybe hear from our side, from a research point, why this conversation is important. So essentially what you mentioned of the jobs, we sit in an Africa that we always are complaining about the unemployment and the poverty. And yet MICE is something that, whether we have unskilled labor or very skilled labor, we all fit into that value chain. The opportunity for job creation actually on the continent is phenomenal. If we can organize ourselves, then we will be able to drive the sector. We just recently completed our Perspectives report, and it's still now, out of the 16 countries that we look at doing research, Africa is largely nascent, and that means we're largely we're unstructured in our industry. We do things in a fragmented way. It's exactly what Marlene said. But that if the jobs currently, this particular sector employs about 400,000 direct jobs. If we were to organize and actually systematically work through this, what could it look like by 2030 to actually reduce these poverty numbers? So that's our aspiration. The why this MICE industry matters is whether you are a very, like somebody who is just, at the entry level of skill set, you can fit into this MICE industry, whether you're very advanced and a PhD, the Marlenes, in the sector, there's somewhere that every single skill set and skill level can actually fit, so that we are a sector in and of ourselves that can grow the unemployment. But beyond that, in terms of driving the different sectors, there isn't an industry that can grow without people meeting. And so if the sooner and faster that we can organize, the better for our governments. So I'm going to stop there. I was giving you the minute to think about it. So Rick, your one thing, and then Marlene, your one thing.
Okay, great. Again, thanks, Londi. Absolutely spot on. So to try and sort of, what's the nugget? I think in this sector, what is required is an infinite mindset, which doesn't work perhaps too well, again, with respect within governments, because the politics sort of circle every 4 or 5 years or whatever. But what we're doing when we certainly build convention bureaus, we look, and don't fall off your chairs, we look at a 50 to 100 year horizon. It's what we call cathedral thinking. So when you're building a cathedral, and I'm thinking of if those of us who've been to Barcelona and have watched the Sagrada being built over the last 150 years, that is what we're doing when we build a convention bureau. We're building an institution that is there forever. And I call that, we need to adopt an infinite mindset.
I love it. I love it. And it's true. That you know what I love about that is the idea, when you think about something infinite, then you are forced to continuously develop and grow it. There isn't a static point where you arrive and you're done. Whereas infinite means we are continuously growing. So we create our convention bureaus to grow, and they continue. Thanks, Rick. Thank you so much for that. Molly?
Absolute pleasure.
My thinking is, I think I'm just going to say it. I think there is a need for an African Convention Bureau that actually has one voice for the continent as a whole. And then tearing down from the African Convention Bureau would be the sector focus based on the countries and what is the need and which country would benefit the most from a specific conference. And we need to then go out with one voice. At the moment, we are all competing. It's just, I'm not going to say mush, but I'm going to say it. It's very bad for marketing. And, we always get treated like the poor cousins of the world. It's because we don't have a strong voice. We need a strong PR team for Africa, and we need a convention bureau that is the apex of everything.
Great. Thanks, Marlene. It's a cohesion, some sort of way to actually get working together and organize and move together. And whether it's a convention bureau or a group or whatever this looks like, we need cohesion to actually get us towards our goals. I like mishmash is a little bit of where we are right now in terms of the continent, but we're wanting to structure, we're wanting to organize. So that definitely is something that I resonate with, that we need to organize. We need to find ways to systematically work together to grow, whether that is a convention bureau or that's whatever the mechanisms look like, because some countries, some things work better than others, work better in some countries than others. But we want to get to a point where Africa is growing, because otherwise then there is no actual potential to grow if we're all kind of scattered and still working as we have been in the passed. So Marlene, there's David. I'm not sure if he's still even on the call, but David, Marlene, and Rick, thank you very much for this part of the panel discussion. We could speak forever, I know, but we really wanted to just get a bit of a highlight. So thank you very much, and we're going to move on to the next part of our panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that to our panel. You all have definitely worked hard to capacitate the continent, and we no doubt look forward to working with you in the future. I would now like to introduce our first presentation. Following this discussion that looks specifically what this has practically looked like by event organizer and a passionate advocate for mice and intra-Africa connectivity. So without further ado, I would now like to welcome Tony Ukachukwu, who is the founder of Walk for Love, and who will share with us his work on the continent and the value of the industry. So please welcome Tony. And Tony, if you could share your screen and unmute your mic, please. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I am here. It says my host stopped my video, so I think it's from your side.
Let me just sort it.
Stop my video.
You can go ahead, Tony, we can see you.
Okay, I mean, so the slide I shared, the slide with you, can you, because I don't have it on my system, I don't know if you can share it from your side.
It's on screen. It's on screen, Tony, can you see it?
No, I can't. Okay.
And now?
I am trying to get it out. Okay. Thank you very much, Londi. Good morning once again, everyone. My name is Tony Ukachukwu. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so I'm just going to share a quick presentation unlocking the potential of intracontinental mice market. Good thing, Marlene and Rick have done quite a good job for me by sharing some of the nuggets that I already have in the slide. So basically in this presentation, I want to look at the collaboration and why mice matters. Of course, that's already been shared. I will share some of the key challenges, the role of AFCFTA, the sector-specific events, and how they can boost industries like tech, healthcare, and tourism, the need for capacity building and digitalization, of course, how networks and partnership and stakeholder engagements can fuel sustained growth, and of course, real world-class studies and actionable recommendation. So basically, let's jump into it. So the potential of intra-African collaboration is very key. Growing economies, of course, Africa is home to 6 out of 10 fastest growing economies. The potentials have been there for a very, very long time. It's just for us to look at how we can convert these potentials to real actionable events. Of course, because of the vastness of how Africa is, of course, we have diverse markets as well, from agriculture to fintech to tourism, energy. We have vast potential for sector-specific synergies. And of course, cultural exchange as well. I mean, Africa is huge on cultural heritage and exchange. Business events of this magnitude can promote cultural understanding and provide a platform to showcase Africa's rich heritage, which is also one of those areas we need to explore. And of course, economic cooperation from less than 15% compared to Europe of 60%, there is vast opportunity that we can close this gap, of course, which Rick has also mentioned, with building of convention bureaus. This can help in closing such gaps. Next slide, please. So the key challenge is basically, of course, again, back to what Rick is saying, of course, we have infrastructural gaps. And this also has some political undertones, but basically building those modern venues, Rick said, is a cathedral kind of institution, which takes time, and it takes deliberate planning and strategic implementation for these kind of things to happen. They are not your 1 year, 2 years kind of and of course, to go to visa barrier, I mean, as a MICE event organizer myself, I have encountered, these issues when it comes to visa. Hosting an event in South Africa and having visa issues from delegates coming to South Africa was a huge, huge challenge. And I think this is one of the restrictive areas with visa. This discouraging cross-border participation and also limit attendance. Of course, we also have low digital adoption across countries. So reliable tech infrastructure also hinders, and this is some area we need to work on. Skills shortage, Marlene talked greatly around this area. The lack of trained event professionals affects planning, execution, and overall quality of events across board. I mean, I don't want to dig too deep, but Marlene has already shared, most times you see that it's like she said in her work, that the skills pipeline is, kind of narrowing. So this is one of the key areas, the challenges we are facing when it comes to MICE. Of course, when you go to framing the opportunity, so infrastructural investment is key. So for all of the challenges we have, there's also big opportunities underlying them. Opportunity for real estate developers, hospitality brands, government-private partnerships, coming to PPP to build and manage modern event venues, business hotels, and transport hubs. It's a big opportunity in this area. Digital solution and tech, tech startups can provide solutions for virtual event platforms, and attendees can engage with tools and digital registration, of course, so that they can also have analytics. Advocacy is what we also do at Work for Love Africa through using our platform to advocate for lowering down barriers that impede the travel, tourism, and trade. Visa is one of those key issues. Our mandate is that rather than increase visa restriction, we believe that countries should rather strengthen their immigration policies. And the key example that I can give with this visa reform policy is Rwanda. Rwanda has lowered its visa barrier by making sure that every African country can come to Rwanda visa-free. However, you cannot joke with the internal immigration policies and security architecture that Rwanda has put in place. Of course, so yes, I can arrive in Rwanda, get all my biometrics done, and enter the country, but I can easily be tracked if I do engage in some kind of nefarious activity. That is the way I think African countries should go to. Strengthen your immigration as security architecture and lower the visa barriers so that people can be able to come into your country. However, so that they can conduct their business. And then, of course, you can filter those ones that have, criminal tendencies. So I think tightening visa rules kind of impedes our ability to collaborate and partner. Then, of course, training and capacity building, vocational training centers. Again, Marlene has mentioned these universities, and consulting firm, of course, like niche partners. What you are doing right now is kind of growing capacity and training in this area, which is also an opportunity that the challenges provide. And of course, business development services, event organizers, marketers, companies, audiovisual production firms can grow by serving this rising demand. Of course, when there's a need for MICE events, of course, the supply chain and the ecosystem benefits from the opportunity it provides. Next slide, please. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is the world's largest free trade area by the number of participating countries. And basically, this initiative aims to remove trade barriers, intra-African trade barriers, promote movement of people and services, support harmonization of standards. This helps with easier logistics for Pan-African events. We are seeing some results in some area with the work is doing. Of course, there is rise in multi-country business forums, increased private sector collaboration. So the initiative at AFCFTA will further go to the opportunities that is provided for travel and trade. Next slide, please. Of course, we have industry-specific events on the continent that have shown that there's a great opportunity for MICE events. One of them is GITEX Africa, a major tech and startup expo held in Morocco. You have the Africa Health Conference. Then, of course, you have Africa Travel in Daba, one of those events that showcases Africa, which, of course, I attended, I was part of. So some of these events are some of the events that showcase the import, and just like Rick also again said, you can see the ROI that these events can bring. Next slide, please. So capacity building, again, I won't overflog it. It has been shared during the panel session, of course, shed some light by Marlene. To strengthen the MICE industry across Africa, we must invest in the people. And of course, Londi also mentioned this as well. We need systems, very key. So training programs, event planners and hospitality workers, venue operators, event marketing, upskilling, reskilling professionals, and digital and experiential marketing strategies, professional association, like your ICAI, your SACHI, and EXA. These are some of the associations that help with, promoting the sector. Digitalization provided. Next slide, please. So online platforms, social media marketing, digital payment system, all this also help in promoting MICE events, to moving from just on-site to maybe a hybrid format. The digitalization of these events can help to, help registration, participation, analytics, and the likes. So the opportunities, next slide, please. The opportunity, of course, digital platform lower geographical and financial barriers, enabling inclusion from underrepresented regions. I mean, up until now that we are still grappling with visas, we can begin to tap on the opportunity of digitalizing some of these events. It encourages wider participation, it's cost efficient, and of course, it's going to make you able to have some data and insights. So it also helps to build networks, stakeholder forums. This brings together government, private sector, NGOs, and creative together, multi-sector partnership across board. MICE is huge in that it's not just sector specific. It can bring across people from different sectors. Also, of course, community-led events, grassroots movements, gaining traction through engagements. From what MICE is, those are some of the offshoots of MICE events, because the communities get to benefit from these events as well. Next slide, please. Stakeholder engagement is very key. Active collaboration among stakeholders is essential. I'm sure this has already been mentioned here. There is great need for partnership and collaboration, which I think personally is also lacking on the continent. There needs to be more movement towards collaboration and partnerships in the sector and in the ecosystem. And this government, example of key stakeholders, of course, government, so that they can provide some kind of policy support and stable environment for MICE to thrive, streamline visa processes, public investment in infrastructure. Of course, they can also take the route of PPP, public-private partnerships. The private sector, of course, we are driving innovation and delivery via venue construction, hospitality services, event technology, and logistics. And there's the civil societies and local community as well. They add value, cultural inclusion, local content, grassroots participation, volunteer engagement, and of course, advocacy as well. Next slide, please. Like I mentioned before, partnership is key. So have bilateral partnership. It can be between Nigeria and Kenya trade summits, Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Ethiopia, public-private venue development sponsorship, international knowledge transfer and joint ventures with global minds. I mean, next slide, please. Going to knowledge sharing. Marlene again has shed light on this, so I'm not going to spend too much time. Knowledge sharing is key as they serve as powerful platforms for shaping insights, innovation, and best practices that can elevate the entire industry across Africa. So examples are event planning, case studies, real-life lessons, shared vendor databases, Pan-African directories, market trend reports and research. Niche partner is playing a great role in this area, cross-border collaboration. And then, of course, we cannot end without mentioning MICE and sustainability. Sustainability, of course, is doing what we can now without endangering the generations to come. So there must be this deliberate thinking around making our MICE events to be sustainable for businesses across Africa. Making economic impact with environmental responsibility is very key. Employing circular economy, renewable energy, some of the vendor supplier materials they are using, and of course, one group that is making a huge impact in this area is the Event Grading Forum in South Africa. They are doing a great job making sure that events are sustainable in the sense that they move towards that direction. One of the events at Meetings Africa, in the room we had, is one of the sessions that EGF organized. The delegates the participants did not even notice that we didn't put on the lights. We just used the natural lights while we're having the session, until our attention was called to the fact that, we didn't put on the lights, So these are some little low-hanging fruits we can impute in our planning of MICE event, because sustainability is key. We cannot run away from it. That's where we are going. We have to look at ways to incorporate sustainability in the MICE events that we have across Africa. So, of course, we have examples of events: Africa Cup of Nations, AU Summit, Ghana Tech Summit. These are some of the case studies of MICE events that I've held. So next slide is going to recommendation, develop infrastructure, streamline visa policies, foster partnerships, invest in capacity building, very key for the next generation of MICE professionals, leverage digital platforms. So in conclusion, basically, MICE industry holds immense untapped potential. We all know that, just like Londi has said before. We believe that Africa, with the 55 countries in Africa with cross-border partnerships and collaboration, we are able to untap the immense potential that MICE provides. And I'm looking forward with the new fellows and move towards our drive to making MICE not just like a subsector, but a great sector that should, for business events, rather than just focusing on leisure. We can begin to untap, the potentials it provides in driving trade, innovation, unity, and progress on the continent. So if you haven't gotten a copy of Afri Explorer, where we showcase MICE, South Africa as a leading MICE destination. Do well to log on to www.workforloveafrica.org for you to have a soft copy. We were at Ndaba and we shared the hard copies. We dug deep with help of niche partners, of course, Rick Taylor and other stakeholders. We're able to look at MICE South Africa as the leading MICE destination, and we're hoping that other African countries can take a cue and see how they can, develop their convention bureau. Of course, Rick and Colette doing great work across tourism board, developing their convention bureau. I think that we are going in the right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony, for that insightful presentation. Clearly, the opportunity in Africa isn't a discussion anymore, but in reality, and your work in the continent is really compelling. So without further ado, let's invite our next guest speaker. Bongiwe Nziko is the Head of Business Development at South African National Convention Bureau, and she's going to present on today the value of the MICE on national strategies from a Convention Bureau standpoint. So welcome, Bongiwe. Can you please share your screen and unmute your mic?
Hi, Bongiwe, you can go ahead. Your mic is a bit faint. Would you mind just increasing your volume, Bongiwe? No.
Is it better now?
Perfect. Loud and clear now.
Loud and clear. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Londi. So the South African National Convention Bureau is a strategic business unit within South African tourism. It is mandated to position South Africa as a leading global events destination by securing international, regional incentive conventions and trade exhibitions. And also, our role is to create demand by actively bidding for international and regional African business events. We also aim to promote geographical spread through the National Association Project. So this project, the National Association Project, is directly targeted at, firstly, spreading geographical spread, but it's also targeted at capacitating the smaller towns, the VTSDs, villages, small dorpies, townships. So when we host a meeting in a small town, we want to capacitate the community so that we can get the AV there, we can get the photographer there. Obviously, we use the venue, but we use the caterer. But also the National Association that we are supporting, they are also making it so that they can bid for either a national, an international, or regional event. Thank you. Next slide. So this is just an overview in terms of the how it looks like for the South African National Convention Bureau during the past financial year, 2024-25. We sourced about 104 bids for international business events that can be hosted in South Africa between 2024 and 2032. And the combined, as you can see, the combined potential economic value that this will bring, and the delegates is around 61,000. And this is between 2024 and 2029. So far, we secured 66 of the 104 bids, which is over 50% in terms of what we are targeting. We've specifically focused within the government priorities, as mentioned in the National Development 2030, And also, as previously alluded, regional spread is important for us. So these are the towns that have hosted some of the meetings. Thank you. Next slide. So in terms of our contribution to the mice industry, I know that Marlene has spoken about the importance of us working with the academia community to do a lot of work with universities. I mean, last week we did workshops with UJ, University of Johannesburg. We also were at the ICASA's School of Economic Development's Research Week. So we continuously work with different academic institutions to source leads for us to convert into bidding opportunities for the country. But we also work with academics to capacitate our youth through our Meetings Africa show. We have a Future Leaders Forum session that we have that's specifically targeted at students. So, I mean, Africa has the youngest population in the world. What does that mean for the future? What does that mean for potential economic opportunities? So it's in our hands to make Africa quite robust and a big competitor when you look at it from a global perspective. We also have MOUs with different associations, SACHI, Event Greening Forum, Association for African Exhibition Organizers, SITE, and ICA, and we are continuously looking at building this pipeline. We also do a lot of work around our strategic platforms. Obviously, we own two of the platforms as the National Convention Bureau. We own ATI, Africa's Travel Indaba. Tony referred to both of them in his previous presentation. We also own Meetings Africa, which is more related, obviously, to what we do within business events. So we continuously use those platforms also to drive the same agenda in terms of us making sure that we go out there, we source leads and we convert them into business opportunities. But I'd also like to add to what Marlene was talking to in terms of us being intentional. I mean, after COVID, we learned that we probably need to be more robust in our approach as the continent in terms of making sure that we have more regional meetings that are taking place so that we can build our industry, so that if we have a pandemic such as the COVID, we would not experience so much catastrophe, but we'd be able to lean in on the fact that ourselves as a continent, we have a very strong business events industry, and I think that links to what Rick said. I made a note here, Rick. You spoke about cathedral thinking, which is an infinite mindset, and I was sitting here and thinking, we will pass on, and this will continue to be built by future generations. Thank you. Next slide. So in terms of the importance of governments in being involved in terms of national convention bureaus, it is actually very, very important that they become involved, because in terms of the resources, firstly, that we need to make this a robust industry and a very competitive industry, as all of you on this call would know, as I'm speaking to the converted, we need government to buy in for us to build this business in industry, but events industry. But we also know that it comes with so much potential in terms of contributing to our economy, in our economies. But not only that, we need the governments in terms of making sure that we have the right infrastructure. They give us the supportive legislation. And I think from a continental point of view, AU, as the African Union, as an entity, becomes then a critical part of the conversation, because that is where all the different governments sit and map the way forward and actually make sure we we implement some of these decisions that are taken there, and then they would then filter down to the rest of the governments. And this second point talks to us, of course, the multi-faceted economic returns, which are contributing to the tourism and hospitality industries in terms of us creating direct and indirect jobs, and also building the international profile. I mean, South Africa, as we speak, is home of G20, the first ever African country to do it. I think for the continent, that's a huge win for us to be able to do that. And we need to use such events to then continuously profiling our continent in terms of our hosting capabilities and us being able to be the best of the best globally, not only from a continental point of view. And also, I know that Rick would also have a lot to add in terms of him doing a lot of work in building convention bureaus on the continent, because countries like Rwanda, Nigeria, and I saw there's a lot of colleagues from Ghana as well on the call. We are all moving in the same direction in terms of saying, what can we do for the industry? Nigeria has announced plan to establish a national MICE training institute and training professionals around 2,000 manually. And to Marlene's point earlier, we need to, though, as the continent, look at coordinating all these small efforts so that they then become one consolidated effort for a greater good of the continent. Thank you. Can you move to the next slide? This slide basically just highlights the estimated value in terms of in 2023 and the projections by 2032 in terms of how we're going to look like for the business events industry. And Africa shows the best growth rate when compared to regions such as the Americas, Europe, and the Asia Pacific region. So colleagues, this is a call for all of us on this call to actually make it count. You know, the insights are telling us that it's also time for Africa to start moving forward and taking opportunities in terms of what we can offer as the continent. Thank you. Next slide. In conclusion, South Africa holds a higher value compared to other markets, even though all countries are expected to experience a robust double-digit compound growth between last year, 2023, pardon me, and 2032. Rwanda is giving us a run for our money as a destination as well. They are intense, but we need a lot of Rwandas. We need a lot of South Africa for us to be able to make it a really, really robust business events destination. The UAE at the moment is when you look at the current released ICA rankings, they are leading us. We are no longer leading as South Africa as a destination, purely because they've put other incentives in place, such as allowing associations to come and be headquartered within the UAE at certain, and there were certain, this is where governments become critical, because then they got certain discounts or they don't pay to have their headquarters there. Hence, they are moving forward. So as the continent, we also need to think of ways, creative ways and tactics. How can we get these associations to come here and do business with us as a continent? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you. I think this is my last slide.
Great. Thank you, Bongiwe. And I think you landed the point like perfectly to say that it's an ecosystem. Governments are key to making sure that we grow. And I love that you keep saying it's time for Africa, and the numbers show that it's time for Africa. Whatever numbers you look at, you know, whether, and this is something that we need to get right in terms of our own consolidated tracking, but whatever number you look at, whether from a trade, whether from an economic growth, whether from a population, whether from the MICE sector, our continent is growing, and the opportunity in the next couple of years for this continent to grow are actually incomparable. There are very few destinations, like you just pointed out, on the globe where the growth is growing at the rate that it's growing in Africa. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. I always love hearing that's your story and you're sticking to it. Let's stick to this particular story. Okay, perfect. We're going to move on to what is the last component of our program, really, but not the least. This is in fact we were leading up to this peak, to talking to our fellows who have spent the last 3 months looking at the MICE sector. And we really want to hear why they started this journey, and more importantly, what they've learned and what they see as a vision for themselves for the next, towards 2030, towards 2063, in terms of what it is that they've learned in the program. So I'm going to ask, as I call the name, to just unmute your mic and share your screen so that people can see that you're real. And I'm going to start with 2 of our fellows. So Caleb and Farirai, I thought let's kick off with you and just ask the question of why. So why did you get involved in the MICE fellowship program? So maybe just introduce yourself and a bit of where you're from, and then just go straight into your why. Why did you join this program?
Londi, who should go first?
Oh, okay, yes. Ladies, let me get. Let's do ladies first. So go for it, Farah, and then you can come in, Caleb. Thanks, Caleb, for checking.
Morning, everyone. How are you? Thank you. I'm Farirai. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm a MICE consultant based in Zimbabwe. So basically, I joined this fellowship because I wanted to learn more about business events in Africa and internationally. Because I'm coming from a background of social events. I was doing weddings, and then I moved into exhibitions in 2020. So generally, the main reason why I decided to move into this is because I wanted to get to understand more about MICE in the other African countries, South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, and understand how we as Zimbabwe can benefit from the MICE industry. And from this fellowship, what basically I've learned, the research component, like you can't plan an event without the data, without the statistics. So from this fellowship, what I have learned is how to gradually do the research. And when we're bidding for events at international, global scale, or regional, be it, what sort of areas we need to look into, have the facts, the industry, get an understanding of the industries that we are dealing with, and also how to approach and build ecosystems. And then for my vision for MICE, per se, as what Marlene was saying, is I believe that as Africa, and as if we collaborate, we are in a better position for the whole continent to benefit. And we need to start looking at bidding for events as Africa instead of individually as countries. Because from this fellowship, we did see that there are some events, for example, that wouldn't necessarily be ideal for Zimbabwe, would be ideal for Botswana or Namibia. And as fellows, I think we came to an understanding that we can then come together as a group and identify these events and see where best to position. Insightful journey. We learned a lot, and MICE is a very interesting area in tourism. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Varira. And we're just starting, so just give us your initial thoughts. We'll come back definitely more than once, but go for it, Caleb. On your side, your why. Why did you join, and what is your vision?
Whoa. Londi, it's been an amazing journey, but I want to use the occasion very quickly to say hello to everyone. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you the current temperature as I would always do in class, where I gave Ghana's latest weather condition, but I estimate it to be around 31 degrees at this point, the center of the world, and also the home and the gateway of West Africa. So that's how I always like to sell my kind of Ghana. Wonderful people, people of hospitality, people of culture, people of heritage, and we are such a wonderful community of Africans in this space called the Republic of Ghana. I want to also use the opportunity to thank one or two people, very, very important to the whole course program, the journey, the support they've given me as well. Dr. Spencer Doku, who is with the Department of Tourism, Ministry of Tourism, the government side. Very fortunately, he's also part of this ongoing discussion now to give me the moral support and also to be a blessing to this particular. So we have government officials at that high level, and I don't want to mention the rest of them, but this one is very significant because it's tied to my course program in terms of mentoring. I also want to thank Dr. Kwesi Eyisin, who was the Vice President of the Ghana Tourism Federation from the private sector side, and an amazing mentor. I want to thank you as well, and the rest. So it's been an amazing 3 months journey, I must say. In fact, my points I noted will not be different from what Farai has shared. I would just also told in the same line. Ghana is endowed with so many opportunities, but in the course of the program, there was an aspect that we discussed. Londi, if you remember, you took us through that area of formalization. How formal is our mine sector in our respective countries? And so one of the exciting things that I expected to understand is the aspect of how mines impacts our forward thinking and as a country. And so my interest was in the area of research components, and also throughout the 3 months engagement, I was confronted with one particular research mechanism called PESTEL. Very fortunate I've heard of PESTEL, what it is, but in terms of understanding, but I believe this particular platform offered me that grounds to understand and relate in research what are the political motivations, economic motivation, the social aspect, the technology, the legal aspect, and all of that. So I would say that I have learned so much in the area of the research part. The second part also has to do with what are some of the case study that we can look at and identify, because we are a continent and continuously we are integrating. And what it also means is that it gives us the platform within a broader stakeholder engagement to continue to harmonize, come together, share best practices. And so one of my exciting journey on this course was to understand what is happening with other countries in terms of their mines tourism agenda. And again, this program has given me that opportunity to relate with so many case studies that you share with us in the course of the program. South Africa is a good case, just as we spoke a while ago, Rwanda as well, and other countries. So the appreciation of showcasing our other regional neighbors and the lead they have taken in mines was an amazing opportunity where I had a lot of insight as well. So what would I do? Sorry, my motivation, now that I have gone through this program, my advocacy course and passion will be to play a key private sector stakeholder support in terms of engagement, where for me, the private sector, we always say that tourism is government-led and private sector driven. And much as we want to all collaborate and partner and develop tourism industry in Ghana and how it integrates into the continental agenda, it will be important also for us as private sector to look at some of the specific gap areas. And one of those gap areas is, again, the research aspect, where we have the tourism policies in Ghana, but as to whether they are properly positioned to create an environment to impact the private sector is another progressive journey that we have all embarked together. Private sector has done some amazing, job with public sector partners. If you look at the year of return 2017, 2018, the success story is there, which is more or less a MICE events agenda. And the synergy and the collaboration between the government and the private sector is very clear to see. However, going forward, we need to do more than that. We need to now come to appreciate proper research, because the aspect of MICE in what we have dealt in class has been the focus on the business aspects. So how does proven research, how does proven research able to bring out the clear markings, the clear positions about the national strategy for Ghana, and how this research propels and guides policy and direction as we engage and collaborate with the private sector. So in conclusion, I would say that my part to be more advocacy, more support, more engagement, to continue to collaborate with our public sector partners, to engage on collaborative, innovative ways that we can look at so that all our discussions will be fitted into a national agenda to develop the right programs that drives the MICE tourism agenda. I believe I will pause for now, and this has been my unique experiences when I entered into the MICE research and business development program, fellowship program, and very grateful to Niche Partners and grateful to Londi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Caleb. And we're going to come back. I want to cover everybody because there's so much to say, and I know this group, so there's a lot we can say together. But definitely, in terms of the learnings, it's a good place to start. I want to just hear from Ernest and Adedayo now. Just going over to Ernest and Adedayo, if you can also share your screen and your mind. Also from your part, in terms of some of the key learnings on this journey, but more in particular, thinking through now, what does it look like going forward on your side as well, in terms of the MICE industry in Africa? Where do you now see that we now need to close some gaps? So can start with you. I see you first, Adedayo, on screen, and then Ernest.
Oh, well, I just want to say good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Platform. And firstly, I want to thank our Niche Partners, Londi and the team. I think you're doing a very commendable work in the tourism industry here in Africa. It's very innovative. You looked very deeply, and you've seen the gaps, and it's very, very interesting that we're going this way, which is, first of all, has to do with capacity building. It's just about people. It's just about people. It's beyond the infrastructural development, because even when you're developing infrastructure, what about who's going to drive the infrastructural development? So I just want to thank you for the good work that you started. I picked up interest immediately. I saw the notification on my LinkedIn page because of the fact that Nigeria is beginning to blossom when it comes to tourism. We've always depended on oil, and for us, some of us that have been in tourism for decades, it was as if we were isolated. And when we look at development across the continent, we realize that we were basically way back in terms of our development process. So I picked it up immediately, and to cut a long story short, here I am, and this is the end of it all, and also the beginning. Before I go further, just another 2 minutes for me, I'll say that I picked up on what Marlene said, which is one of the driving forces that has brought me into this group. And it has to do with the issue of collaboration, the issue of complementing one another as a continent, rather than being so competitive to the extent that we want to, cut one another's throats. And it's one of the things I picked up during our classes, that even when we're talking about bids, because the last assignment was bidding for ICASA. And one of the things that I mentioned was the fact that if we look at countries that are represented, and we now say that Zimbabwe is what we want to present as a primary bid, then other countries should join up with Zimbabwe and to make sure that that bid is well put together, and that Zimbabwe gets the ICASA bid or whatever global bid that we're looking at. And I think I really appreciate that so much, because I see Africa as one. I don't see Africa as so many countries, because really Africa is not the way that it was actually built over the last few decades. We know the influence in Africa of the Western world and what has happened to Africa. I think we need to build that very strongly and build it right back. Again, going back to what's been happening in Nigeria, the sudden interest in tourism and hospitality, the growth trajectory is really, really very commendable. Because back then, when I went into the MICE sector, which was as if we were isolated, it was as if, what are these guys doing? And nobody was really, really interested. There was no sponsorship. People were not really interested, and there was so much to do. But now there's a lot of interest being picked up in this sector, and we need to make sure that the growth trajectory is accurate. The need to also promote and celebrate professionalism is very critical, because we found out that the standards have slipped considerably, and professionalism, it seems as if it's been thrown to the dogs. My partner will usually talk about professionalism, and he will always use this payoff, that professionalism is playing the game according to the rules of the game. And that is one of the things that I've learned in these last 3 months, which my time has been so well spent, and it has been very, very rewarding. The professionalism that Niche Partners brought into the tutelage itself, and the manner in which my colleagues presented themselves, and the interactions that we had during the 3-month period. For me, the personal requirement to reinvent my organization was also a push. And despite many years of experience in the sector, I realized that there was a need to gain structured learning in MICE. Just doing MICE is not. One must know exactly what one has to do, how MICE is structured, and how one has to have very, very successful events. The issue of the three dimensions in which build a MICE event and then deliver. The issue of the research is one thing that we don't really take time in doing. The issue of building that ecosystem that is very strong before the bidding aspect. Those are the three things I'm really, really taking home, and are the 3 things I need to practice. So in my space, of course, for effective and efficient delivery, we have to continue to collaborate. We have to keep talking. We have to see one another as having the same objectives as we forge ahead. So I want to thank all my colleagues again. Caleb has been thrown a lot of color into our meetings. Angel, of course, Rai, my good brother Olumide, Ernest, everyone has been tremendous. So I'm really glad. I'm going to definitely promote this. I've already started talking to some colleagues of mine that they need to get into this program. So thank you so much, Londi. Definitely, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
No, great. Thanks, Adedayo. And I think the big thing is that's coming out of the first of you is just us organizing, because like you said, we can improve the infrastructure, we can improve the physical, but the people, the capacity building, the ecosystems that we need, we can't do without. So it really has been a pleasure. But like you said, we just got started, so we're not done yet. But Ernest, on your side, what has been sort of your key learning and your perspective in terms of us going forward in terms of the MICE industry in Africa?
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to be part of the MICE program, the first place. I've been working for the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts for about 4 years now. Travel industry for 6 years prior to that, and I'm still in the travel industry as well. I've always loved tourism. I've always had a passion for tourism. I studied tourism in school. So when I heard about the MICE program, I knew that it was something that I had to be a part of. Because it was like a sector that was very new to me. I've heard about MICE when I was in school. I've heard about MICE throughout the industry, but not specifically being there being a program like this to be able to train professionals across Africa. And one thing that I have noticed is that like one of our biggest gaps or biggest issues in Africa's MICE sector is the lack of coordination in terms of on the national and regional level, coordinated strategies. Ghana, since I was in the since I've been working in the ministry, I've never really heard about any specific MICE program or any specific program that is directed to develop the MICE industry in Ghana. And I think that's a problem across Africa. I'm sure I know of certain countries that work to build their MICE sector: Rwanda, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya. They do a lot when it comes to the MICE sector. But in Africa as a whole, we don't really focus on MICE when it comes to tourism. We don't focus on MICE in destination marketing. And I feel like it's a very big gap that we need to focus on. Africa is rich with a lot of culture, rich culture, growing infrastructures and skilled professionals that are willing to learn, are ready to learn to improve their skills and help as much as they can to promote Africa. So I think if we have more regional strategies, national strategies in place, it will also help. And I think this is also hindered by sometimes these political transitions, because sometimes some political some governments might have MICE programs in place, but when a new government comes in, they scrap it, and there's no coordination there. There's no national agenda. There's supposed to be, apart from even having a national agenda, there's supposed to be an African agenda. Like they need to know that when I come to power or when I'm in power, I need to also improve the MICE sector. I need to improve marketing Africa as a whole. But it's not really the focus when they come in. So that's a big gap. And looking forward, I'm seeing changes. This program is also one of the changes. So I'm seeing changes, and hopefully it's not just this program. There are other programs that come up that can improve or reiterate the importance of the MICE sector. Another gap to that I also noticed was lack of collaboration. There's not really collaboration within Africa, like amongst professionals. I enjoyed the class David Zimmerman gave in terms of, I think his class was leveraging social media in the MICE space. And I think social media is one of the ways that we can collaborate. We can talk to each other on the MySpace. So whatever it is that is going on the MySpace, we can, especially LinkedIn, we can find out and be in the loop and also help as much as we can and across Africa. So yeah, I enjoyed that class a lot, and that class really opened my eyes on how we can use LinkedIn to do that. And yeah, I think that is an issue I've also identified. And going forward, I know nowadays a lot of people are on LinkedIn. I'm sure most people who joined this class found out about it, or joined this event or this session, found out about it through LinkedIn. So we shouldn't just use LinkedIn as a social media app like Instagram and Facebook. We should also use it as a tool to link up, to collaborate with other professionals as well. So yeah, I mean, that's the little that I want to, I had a lot to say, but Adedayo has expanded a lot on all that I had to say. So yeah,
No,
I mean,
perfect.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be part of the program, and I've learned a lot. I used to say in the beginning that I didn't know a lot about the sector. I was new in the sector. I was new to the sector, but after 3 months, and especially our assignment at the last end of trying to get a bid document together, it showed me the importance of research, showed me the importance of using the pestle and fact analysis to determine your readiness to host an event. So that alone, I think, has propelled me from being a novice to being an intermediate professional.
I love it.
I'm grateful and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Ernest. And you know, you touch on a very important thing, and this is an advantage that Africa does have, is our digital connection. We can say a lot, but we're not using all that we have there. And that's the thing, that we need to actually be more intentional about using the tools and connections that we do have. So thanks, Ernest. I'm going to bring in Israela, who I see come in and out. But Israela, if you can just also just share your experience. You also, we had Ghana in the house in their numbers on the program, which is great. But it's just share from your side as well, what have been some of the learnings, and maybe thinking about Africa private and public sector working together. What are some of the areas that you identified as still gaps?
Hello, everyone, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues. It's so unfortunate I have a noisy background, and I'll just have to make it brief. The internet connectivity has been very terrible for me, and I've been out of the program for more than an hour now. I just managed to get another location and present, yes. So I am elated to share with you the valuable insights I've gained from the MICE Research and Business Development Fellowship Program. This program has been a transformative experience, and it has equipped me with the knowledge, skills, and network necessary to excel in the MICE industry locally in my home country, Ghana, and in Africa at large. So far, my key takeaways has been in the areas of research skills, business development, networking opportunities. In research skills, I have developed and gained and developed expertise in conducting thorough market research, analyzing industry trends, and identifying areas for innovation using the pestle and fact analysis framework and resources from the African Insight Dashboard. So in terms of business development, I look forward to having a good understanding of business development strategies and how to apply them in the MICE industry, especially incentives and budgeting. And also, from the benefits I've gained from this being part of this initiative, I look forward to connect with industry professionals, thought leaders, and peers, opening doors for potential collaborations and partnerships. And in doing so, one key objective for me is uniting private MICE stakeholders to establish a framework for a thriving MICE industry in Ghana. A proactive private sector-led approach that will lead and drive innovation, growth, and development in the MICE industry, while also encouraging the government's support and collaboration. In Mr. Rick Taylor's opening statement, he made mention that for the MICE industry to thrive, we will need the public sector initiating a strategy to have a conversion bureau. But unfortunately in Ghana, we don't have a well-structured conversion bureau. And in so doing, in our own way as private sector, we'll try to put ourselves together whilst we wait on the government's support and collaboration, because we can not forever wait for the government to take the initiative. When the private sector takes the initiative, then the government comes on board. Now, the MICE Research and Business Development Fellowship Program has been a game changer for me, providing me with the tools and expertise necessary to drive success in the industry. I'm excited to apply these insights for future projects, pushing the boundaries of innovation and excellence in the MICE industry. My appreciation goes to niche partners for this enlightening, and also to the team that work with us. Ayuko to all of us, and well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. I'm so sorry for the network, but that was really heartfelt. And I think you said something that we've been talking about for the 3 months, which is in Africa, we and I think Rick mentioned it earlier, we sometimes have good strategies, or we'll have government strategies, and then we'll move, and then the next politician comes in and things change. And that creates an instability that then says to us as the private sector, we can't then stop when government stops. We will keep driving, we will keep going, whatever happens to our governments. And we had lots of these conversations in class to talk about what then happens. We say from a private sector, whatever happens, let's build so that we can move forward as far as we can go, and keep advocating for government. So I think every one of our fellows has become an advocate now to say we need to advocate for the industry. We can use our insights for that, but at the same time, we keep moving the industry forward. We keep professionalizing, we keep investing into it. So thank you very much. I'm going to ask each of you to just close off with one key thing in terms of your own, if you were to ask your ecosystem, because we spoke a lot about ecosystem building and the importance of getting support from our ecosystems in order to drive MICE forward. If you can just summarize and just say the one thing in your ecosystem, in your country, in Africa, that you need the support for, and not just as a fellow, but as an ecosystem. So the fellows that we have on here are all actually professionals in their respective countries and have been working in this industry doing key initiatives. What we wanted to just do is just capacitate them with this research and business development component, which you'll continue to do, but they in their own right have several own ecosystems. So if you can just motivate, and I'm going to just go from left to right as I can see you on my screen. So Farira, one thing that you would just say in your ecosystem, this is the thing.
Okay, for the Zimbabwean ecosystem, I think we now need to start taking MICE seriously, and like to have the same mindset and see where this can go, because it is a great opportunity, and we have to value professionalism and also seek continued professional growth by joining programs such as these. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Farira. Caleb?
Yeah, Londi, I think, again, from private sector perspective, the harmonization of the institutional curriculum, because a lot of our student population go through training and then they are passed on to the industry for various job positions, but there is a huge gap because we have a lot of infrastructural developments that is really moving at a higher pace, but it is not consistent with professionalism and service excellence. So we are still having a lot of skill development gaps. And that is why I, again, will appreciate Dr. Kwesi Aisin, who is a vice president of the sector scale body. But what this training has also brought to the fore that I'm taking on board is, again, to sit down with our public sector partners and the stakeholder, agencies and institutions from the ecosystem. How now do we look at MICE tourism in Ghana as a strategy? And how do we place the MICE tourism strategy in the heart of our academic curriculum? because it is important not to just only teach tourism, general tourism and general information, but at the end of the day, one of the speakers highlighted the need to look at the business development in relation to the academia. So there will be an engagement where we'll look at it holistically, progressively as you are moving forward through the training with the tools that we have learned. We're able to bring some ideas on board to see how the mines tourism as an agenda plays into the academia so that our student population also can embrace it properly. And when they come out, they also come out with the capacity and the knowledge. Sunday, you talked about the capital aspect of it, you know, the skill capitals. How do we able to bring on board the skill capital? And the skill capital is not just a mines conference we organize together, and then we are teaching people about mines and business and strategy. Let's take it back. Let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to the classroom where it all begins. It should not just be at the level of mines conferences where we are reiterating the advocacy of mines strategy and research. It should go back into the classroom, properly packaged, and that is where the bigger conversations would be looked at, addressed, the skill developer. Right? So when they come out Londi, they have become also equipped properly to understand the mines, you know, sector, and then also have a proper business development skills around it, and they can begin to look at the sky as their limit to get into the market and do what they have to do to promote the industry. So again, it goes back to the very thing you have said in the classroom, knowledge, and where do we start from? I think academia will be a great door to be able to channel that advocacy as it cascades into the industry.
Great, thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Farirai. Adedayo, your one thing?
Well, my one thing really is the fact that if I'm taking it from the Nigerian perspective, I still think, or I mean, not just think, substantially we're late starters in the mines sector. If you look at what was it Bongewe? She just dropped out.
Yes.
If you look at when she was looking at South Africa and Africa as a continent, and where there are gains in the mines sector, you find out that Nigeria was like 0.8 billion kind of, looking at the figures. And I think we're late starters. I mean, and what we are asking for is support. Because disregarding the Nigerian market in any sector is that sector's, I mean, is at your own peril. We have 230 million humans living in this space. It's a market that you cannot disregard. The people are vibrant, the people are willing to learn, they are knowledgeable. But there's this myth, and I think it's a myth about Nigeria, and we don't really look at it very deeply and holistically. But we need support. We need all you guys to come in and help us to build this sector. Because it's not just about funding. There are issues of funding. Yes, there are issues of funding. But funding comes through people. Funding comes through Caleb and Rick and the likes of Farirai. You are the gold. Funding comes through you. But the first thing is the support that we need to build the mines sector, right from looking at it from foundation and then building it the way we ought to build it. So we are inviting you for our events. We're asking you to help us to build this so that Africa, we will all gain together as a destination in mines. So that's my last word.
Thank you. Thanks, Adedayo. And yeah, I mean, this is part of it. Is let's get together. Let's move this industry forward together. Ernest, your one thing?
Yeah. My one thing is still going to be on the collaboration efforts. Like, we need to collaborate in Africa. We need to work together in Africa to promote Africa. I know in Africa sometimes we just want to be isolated. We want to do our own thing. We want to be left. The countries within Africa, left their own thing, do their own thing, competing with each other instead of working as a group. And this program is just an example of how well we work together, especially in the MICE sector, because we've collaborated, especially in our assignments, we've collaborated together, we've collaborated to talk about each other's countries, each other's destinations, we've gained insights from how things work in other countries. And even if we didn't do other African countries, at least from what we've heard, from what we've seen, it gives us interest, gives us the reason, the motivation to do that research, to do that that groundwork. So like I said, collaboration is very important. I feel like collaboration is probably is rather is more important to me in terms of my sector.
Great. No, thanks, Ernest. And we can't do without it. It's really, if you're still on the call, just do one thing before we go to the next, just close. The
Thank you,
closing
Londi.
part. Yeah. Go for it.
One thing I'd like to say is that in as much as there's going to be movement of people, and also there's going to be trade and businesses and investment activities going around Africa or the world, MICE tourism is an important catalyst for growth and development. And institutions, government agencies needs to realize that MICE tourism is as much as important as the other aspect of tourism. Just like we have ecotourism, I think most African countries are selling ecotourism. Most African countries are selling sports tourism and even health tourism. So MICE tourism is as important as all the others, and government agencies needs to make it an important catalyst for growth. Thank you.
No, great. Thank you. Thank you very much to our fellows. And really from us, we definitely could say much more as this group, and we will keep talking, but the main takeaways are we're growing, we need to grow, and we need to do it collaboratively. We need both private sector and public sector to keep supporting the sector. So thank you very much for that.
First, let me thank Niche Partners for the opportunity to speak today. It is important that we reflect on the role Africa's MICE industry plays in shaping not only our economic future, but also our institutional capacity, regional integration, and knowledge-based growth. The ability to convene expert policymakers, researchers, and private sector stakeholders is one of the most effective ways to accelerate national and regional development goals. Globally, the MICE industry is valuable over 1.2 trillion according to Allied Market Research, and it is projected to reach 1.8 trillion by 2032. This growth is not just a reflection of travel demand, but of how events fuel innovation, partnership, and investment. Africa must move from being a participant in the global landscape to becoming a primary host and organizer. This shift is not only possible, but necessary. The MICE industry brings together 4 pillars: meetings, incentive, conference, and exhibition, that together create an ecosystem for strategic dialogue, investment, attraction, and development. Countries that have prioritized this industry are seeing the benefit: improved infrastructure, increased tourism revenue, stronger institutional network, and visibility on the globe stage. In Africa, the potential is clear. According to a ranking report released by the International Congress and Convention Association, ICASA 2024, the top destination for major meetings included South Africa, which topped the list, followed by Rwanda, Kenya, Egypt, and Uganda. Other countries in the top 10 include Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and Nigeria. Let me offer a concrete example. The International Conference on AIDS and STI in Africa, ICASA, which I'm organizer, does more than raise awareness about health issues. It demonstrates Africa's capacity to host complex multi-sector events that influence policy and drive funding towards local needs. ICASA consistently attracts 5,000 to 10,000 delegates, boosting local economy and strengthening partnership between Africa institutions and global organizations. One of the leading examples is Rwanda, which are ranked second in Africa for international conference force.
Okay, apologies for the technical issue there. Thank you to the fellows. We are so looking forward to seeing all that you will be working. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we had the pleasure of working with Luke Bodea, who is the ICASA Director and Society for AIDS in Africa Coordinator. Although he wasn't able, Society for AIDS in Africa is a pan-African, not-for-profit organization established in 1989 by a group of African scientists, activists, and advocates responding to the urgent need for an African platform to tackle the HIV/AIDS epidemic on the continent. Its flagship initiative, the International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa, is the largest gathering of its kind in Africa, promoting strategic dialogue, evidence-based solutions, and cross-sector collaboration. Luke was key in assisting the fellows to put their learnings into practice, in that the final test was a presentation in which the fellows now bid for the biennial bilingual International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa, which brings together researchers, health professionals, policymakers, community leaders, and young people from across Africa and beyond. The conference attracts up to 10,000 delegates into a destination and prioritizes destinations that demonstrate strong leadership commitment, active involvement of national AIDS councils, local community engagement, and private sector readiness. There should be no discriminatory law in the host country. Legacy impact and long-term benefits to host countries are also major factors in their selection. Our fellows had the opportunity to work on a polished proposal that consolidated all the research and development skills learned and presented before the client. The final result is that one of our fellows could be awarded this bid, but the Society has also offered a scholarship for the 2025 Congress in Ghana for the best presenter. While these are still assessed, we want to thank the Society for AIDS in Africa, and particularly Luke Bodea, for the contribution to this program and the passion to see the mice industry grow. Partnering with event organizers and organizations like these are key to capacity building on the continent. We are excited to see what the future looks like. So now, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, we look not to just talk about the Africa we want and Agenda 2063. We look to work on it and systematically work towards these goals. Londi will now share with us our upcoming projects.
Thanks, Ravanya. And I can see that we obviously nearly out of time. And we just wanted to highlight some of the closing our preparation towards 2030, 2063 in terms of the 4 key areas that we are going to be looking at. Essentially, they are nothing different to what we are normally doing here at Niche Partners around insights, which are used for business and advocacy. And so we're going to continue to do this. We want to capture our growth. We believe the only way forward is for Africa to actually capture its numbers, to measure its numbers, and then to intentionally aim to double those numbers. So we're going to continue using our existing African Insights dashboard that Israel mentioned earlier, which is really a research tool that enables us to actually capture what's happening on the continent, and use our MICE maturity indicator as well to give a sense of where are we in terms of the formalization of our continent. Then we want to continue to connect. So we will be connecting using our easy to connect with platforms that we have, using our stakeholder roundtables, but we also want to close the knowledge gap. That's our intention here at Niche Partners. We really don't believe that Africa should not have information when we do have information around this industry. And so we intend to close this gap by connecting the continent and sharing these insights regularly. The third is that we're going to continue with our converting and capacity building. So we intend to continue to build lead developers and salespeople and researchers on the continent who are able to drive business into the continent, so that we drive and increase the quality of the work, the ecosystems that we have in Africa. The fourth is the market. So we want to share marketplaces. We want to increase Africa's visibility because we really believe we need to share our stories. And so this is another opportunity just to say, the team has put their details in the chat. Do share what is happening on the continent from your region so that we can share that with our databases as well. We're going to continue this with our fellows. We've built a portal where our fellows will continuously connect and share insights and lead opportunities. And so we want to build the capacity through this fellowship program. And the last but not least is really about us growing. So we really are committed to saying Africa needs to grow through its research, business development efforts, and we need to be consistent in everything that we do. I liked what Rick said earlier about an infinite mindset. And so that really is what we're wanting to do in terms of, we want to do the work. We need to do it better. We need to learn, fail, improve, grow, but we're here doing it for a long period of time. And as long as this mice industry is here, which we hope is beyond even our own time. So that is essentially what we're going to be working on and just sharing that for our 2030 towards 2063 plan. So finally, we just want to say to our thought leaders, to our speakers, to our partners, we really are committed to driving Africa forward. We believe that this cohort of fellows that we have been working with are a group of people that are committed to actually driving Africa forward. So to the cohort of 2025, our tomorrow begins today. We're not done yet. Well done on the journey so far. And Africa and the ecosystems that are signed on, we really commend you to please support these fellows in working in their respective countries. We are committed to them, and we really ask that you join us in that effort.
Okay, so in closing, we want to thank all our presenters and guest speakers. Thank you to Rick, Bongiwe, and Tony who joined us for today. To our thought leaders, Tracy, Marlene, David, Glenton, and Tess, this program would not have been possible without you. Truly, may you continue to shine a light to the growth of our continent. And thank you to all who joined us today. We hope that we have not only given you food for thought, but reason to connect and come along us on the projects towards the Africa we want and Agenda 2063. Thank you for joining and have a great afternoon, everyone. Goodbye.
We thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Sure.